You should play the Firemen. Now, when I say you should play the Firemen, I don't mean that you should go outside and throw your neighbor's cat up in a tree and then make your little brother go up there and rescue it, but then move the ladder so he's stuck there all afternoon. And when your mom asks you where he is, you tell her you've got no idea and that you haven't seen him all day. Good times. No, what I mean is that you should play the excellent action-adventure game by Human Entertainment for the Super Nintendo. A game that, if you're like me and you grew up on the further side of the Atlantic, you might not have ever heard of. It was only released in Japan, Europe, and Australia, which means that at the very least, you don't need to hunt down for a fan translation if you want to enjoy this title. Not that there's really too much in the way of a story here. Basically, a fire breaks out during a Christmas party at a chemical company, and firemen Pete and Danny arrive on the scene to contain the blaze, along with the rest of their team. You happen to play as Pete, the captain of the unit. Your main objective, as you may have guessed from the title, is to move your way through the building, put out fires, and save civilians that are trapped inside. This might sound like it's a boring premise, but the fireman actually manages to pull it off in such a way that it's anything but. You're going to dodge, dip, dive, duck, and dodge a whole range of different fires coming your way, all while racing against the clock in what is a surprisingly tight, arcadey action game. Pete uses what looks like to be a fire extinguisher that, for some reason, shoots water. Either that or a brand new prototype cordless hose attached to a backpack pump. I'm not quite sure which one. This is your primary weapon as you maneuver around the building and you quench fires. You have an upward spray and a downward spray mapped to two of your face buttons, and holding down either one will either shoot out a beam of water with a long reach, or a misty shower with a limited range. These two types of sprays are used to defeat different types of fire enemies that you encounter, because of course in the video game world, fires are sentient beings that chase you down and try to kill you. Some of these fires are only affected by one spray or the other. You need to alternate between the two different types frequently in order to deal with the inferno as you scale the building and put a stop to this fiery menace. To do this, Pete has been given full 360-degree control, meaning that you can spray and spin around to your heart's content. Not unlike the degree of control that you get with Simon's Whip in Castlevania 4. Furthermore, holding the L or R buttons while spraying locks Pete into a set direction, allowing him to strafe. And of course there are what the game calls extinguishing bombs that you can throw, which are basically giant water balloons and do a massive amount of splash damage. Splash damage. They do a lot of splash damage in a given area. However, you might want to hold off on being over-reliant on them. They're fairly uncommon pickups that are scattered throughout the level in such a way that you might need to actively hunt them down if you want more. And if you're holding on to 3 of these bombs and you pick up a 4th one, you're granted a power-up that increases the pressure and the spread of your hose, making it all that much more powerful. Either way, however you want to approach it, both of these tools are very useful for boss fights. What? You think that an action game made in Japan doesn't have giant boss enemies for you to fight? The Fireman is no different, except that here, these boss fights are fires. But not just any fires. They're fires that are giant, and that have attack patterns, and they hunt you down in small enclosed areas as you fight against man's oldest enemy, mano a mano, or mano a fuego, I guess. Now, that's all well and good for Pete, but what about old Danny here? After all, the guy follows you around with the unwavering loyalty of a newborn puppy, good chum that he is. What does he contribute to the team? Well, Danny here uses an axe to murder the fire. Truly a madman. Who else would attack fire with a blade? Now, you would think that the inclusion of an AI companion is just a placeholder for the single-player mode, and with the simple press of a button, a second player can hop right into the shoes of a purophiliac axe murderer. And in this case, you would be wrong. The Firemen is a purely single-player affair. Indeed, we wouldn't get a proper co-op experience until the release of the Firemen 2, Pete and Danny, on the PlayStation a year later. But since I haven't played that one, I won't be talking about it in this video. Beyond that, there's not really too much else to say about the game. Fireman is a short title. It's only got about 6 levels and a limited number of continues, which really emphasizes its arcadey feel. It's also fairly challenging, with a lot of environmental hazards and fires that impede your progress. Ducking under explosions and crawling under low-hanging fumes all while spinning frantically to douse fireballs coming your way is pretty much commonplace in the game. It's also very linear, with only a handful of areas that branch out into different paths, but if you're going for that 100% fire extinguishing raid, or trying to rescue all the civilians trapped inside the building, it could really amp up that feeling of tension while you're desperately exploring all of the rooms trying to complete your objectives before time runs out. And since rescuing civilians also acts as a health pickup in the game, you're probably going to be looking for them pretty frequently. For as brief as the Fireman is, it offers quite a bit of punch during its runtime. The game doesn't slow down once it starts, and from start to finish, you're in for a frantic run through the fire and the flames. As such, the Fireman is a great choice for a game to play on a weekend where you've got a couple hours to kill and you need something action-packed. It's a neat title that I was really glad I stumbled upon. And that's why I think you should play the Fireman.